So the incubation period is the time between exposure to the virus and the start of symptoms. The infectious period is the start of symptoms to the end of the time the person can give the virus to other people, basically the time that person is contagious. For COVID-19, the incubation period can last between 2 to 14 days, 2 being the shortest we've seen and 14 being the longest. 14 days is also the longest we've seen for the virus to be strong enough in your body to show up on a COVID-19 test. With the infectious period, the person is usually contagious for around 10 days, and as their symptoms decrease in severity, they become less contagious. Usually, the end of the infectious period is marked by the symptoms have significantly decreased or are gone altogether, and the person has gone 24 hours with no fever without medication. It is also important to note that the day symptoms start is the day the person is most contagious. So, if you think you are experiencing COVID-19 symptoms, it is important to make sure that you isolate yourself from others, because that is when you are most likely to give it to somebody else. That being said, the reason the incubation period is so important to pay attention to is because you can begin becoming contagious 2 days before you start showing symptoms. So you can give the virus to people starting 2 days before you even feel sick. That's why, even though the average incubation period typically lasts 5 days, it's important you quarantine yourself for the full 14. To put it simply, if your incubation period is 14 days, you become contagious at 12 days into it. If your incubation period is 5 days, you become contagious 3 days into it. All of this is if you're symptomatic. You can be infected with COVID-19 and not show symptoms at all. That's called being asymptomatic. Again, that's why you need to quarantine for the full 14 days if you think you've been exposed. Like I said, it can take up to 14 days for the virus to show up on a test. So even if you get tested, it's important to keep in mind and definitely quarantine if you think you've been exposed.